Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back on into the Space Cowboy Show. I'm your host, Ricardo, and we have to talk about some updates regarding the defensive coordinator search for the Dallas Cowboys. We're finally starting to see some names come up. We're starting to see a proper search being conducted. It doesn't feel like they're rushing into something, and we're going to go over some of the names as of right now and how we're feeling about that, and a couple of other things in today's video. Before we dive into that, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content as it comes out. Also, the show is powered by Crushman Media, so if you haven't done so already, please make sure to go check out the other shows on the Crushman Media Network. So today that I am recording, it is the 9th of January, which is Friday. So if you guys are watching this after we find a defensive coordinator or something else, just understand when I'm recording this video and putting it up. Now, starting things off with the big one that I have been wanting the Cowboys to go higher, and that is Jim Leonhard, the assistant head coach and the defensive pass game coordinator for the Denver Broncos. For reference, the Dallas Morning News advised that he is going to be interviewed by the Dallas Cowboys on January 10th. Now, for reference, Jim Leonhard is a former defensive back in the NFL. He spent 2005 through 2014 playing in the NFL for several teams, and there is some familiarity with Brian Schottenheimer because he was a player for the Jets between 2009 to 2011, which overlapped with Schottenheimer's stint as the Jets offensive coordinator, which he was there from 06 to 2011. Now, Leonhard has spent the past 2 seasons as the Broncos defensive pass game coordinator, and he has helped Denver create a defense which has been amongst the league's best, to say the least, but he's never been a defensive coordinator at the NFL level. But he was a defensive coordinator at his alma mater at Wisconsin from 2017 to 2022. Now, I personally believe that this would be a home run hire for the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason I say that is because when you look at what they have done in Denver to build that defense and seeing his track record, I do believe that will translate to the Dallas Cowboys. And on top of that, considering the fact that the Cowboys are interviewing people that have not been a defensive coordinator yet, if we look at their track record for who they hire as their defensive coordinator over the past 10 seasons, well, it's someone that has had head coaching experience and has been a defensive coordinator at some point. You look at guys like Matt Eberflus, Dan Quinn, Mike Nolan, Rod Marinelli. Those are the past defensive coordinators that you have had for the Dallas Cowboys, and they all have that same set of traits. And I personally believe if Brian Schottenheimer is trying to spearhead this idea that we need to get new blood in the room, I am 110% on board on that. I am a firm believer that they need to go in a different direction and not use the same template that they have been doing to hire other defensive coordinators. And so that's where I believe that this should be the guy they're going after. They have a connection, as you saw. They have a connection from their time with the Jets, and I do think that when you get a guy that has been recently promoted to a defensive coordinator and a first-time DC at the NFL level, there comes a different set of not only just responsibilities, but also a hunger because you have someone that wants to be a head coach in this league possibly. You know, there's only 32 positions, and getting someone with that spark inside of them is huge for not only the team, but the players as well, because that resonates with them. Now, the next name you want to keep an eye out on is Durante Jones from the Minnesota Vikings. For reference, he started his coaching career down in Miami as their assistant defensive backs coach. He then was a defensive assistant with the Bengals from 2018 to 2019, and then the Vikings in 2020 before he went to the college ranks to become LSU's defensive coordinator, then came back to the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings in 2022 as their defensive backs coach, and he has been with the Vikings since then, and he's worked with Brian Flores, and he's starting to become a popular name when it comes to promotions and becoming a defensive coordinator at the NFL level. Now, the next name you want to keep an eye out on is Ephraim Banda from the Cleveland Browns. He has just recently joined the NFL ranks of coaching back in 2023. He was primarily in college with Utah State being their defensive coordinator. So again, another guy that hasn't been a defensive coordinator at the NFL level. So you have another guy that is most likely ambitious, a guy that's new blood coming into the league and being a defensive coordinator. So that's a good sign there. Again, not following the same formula that we have seen with the other defensive coordinators that you've been looking at. Now, the last name that the Cowboys have brought up in their defensive coordinator search that actually has defensive coordinator experience, but the Cowboys were actually denied for a job interview, is Jeff Ulbrich. Looking a little bit at his history, former NFL player as a linebacker from 2000 to 2009 with the 49ers. He spent time with the Seahawks and UCLA with their coaching staffs before he joined Dan Quinn's staff in Atlanta from 2015 to 2020. He got his first DC gig with the Jets in 2021, and then in 2025 he joined the Atlanta staff again to become their defensive coordinator. Now, based off of the reason for the denial, I think that the Falcons are possibly looking to promote him most likely, hence why they denied the Cowboys the ability to interview him, or maybe they want to just have a chance to interview him beforehand. Obviously, he's already a defensive coordinator. But the fact that he's the only name that we have a attachment to that has defensive coordinator experience, again, goes against the grain for everything that the Cowboys have looked for in a defensive coordinator. Now, you have two guys being interviewed as of this recording today on Friday the 9th, which is going to be Banda and Jones. And then finally you have Ulbrich, who was just denied the ability to be interviewed by the Cowboys from the Falcons. Now, are there going to be a couple other names that pop up? Perhaps. A name that I talked about was Jonathan Gannon from the Arizona Cardinals. He has connections with Clayton Adams, and so I wouldn't be shocked if he was looked at by the Cowboys. But I think for me, when we talk about the Cowboys and their process for finding certain coordinators, I think that it is important that they go with someone new or hasn't had a chance. Because like I've said several times, and I say this for even the offensive side of the ball when it comes to searching for coordinators, is that going with retreads, in my personal opinion, doesn't work out unless there is a guy that has had a proven track record of going wherever he wants to go and it works out. Like those are guys like Wade Phillips, for example, or Steve Spagnuolo, or you throw in another name like Jim Schwartz, for example. Those are guys that have been around the league at many different spots and they have been able to have success regardless of the team that they're a part of. Now you have other guys like a Matt Eberflus, for example, where he has success in one place, but it just doesn't turn out in another place. And that's where I think going in this direction that it seems like that Brian Schottenheimer really wants is crucial. Now, if he gets his choice, which I understand that Jerry wants to be like, oh, at the end of the day, I still have final decision, whatever he wants to say. Look, I don't really care what he has to say. I haven't cared with what Jerry Jones has had to say for the longest time because I feel like even though he is the general manager, the owner, I don't really give a damn what Jerry Jones has to say, and I haven't had done so in quite some time. And the next video that I will be making will be once we've locked in a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, so then we can start having discussions on how we should build this defense up to get us back on track. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.